Are we on?
We are on, and Jackson's just closed his door, so we are good to go.
Hey, hello Facebook.
Hey, Facebook.
Hello Facebook. Let me find 100 Not Out on here. Oh, we're live now. That's what I wanted. All right, great. Turn it down, computer. How are you, Damo?
Great, PC. I should actually jump on my one as well, actually. Get the little notification.
Share this video with friends. Be the first to share this live video. I'm going to share it.
Yeah, I always like to share it. Yep.
Write a post. Ready to rock with Damo. Ready to rock with Damo. All right, sure. I'll do it.
Ready.
Don't know what it's going to do.
You go. 100 Not Out.
I'll pop it in there. All right, now what do I do? Just press return? Don't know. All right, well, I'm a bit confused by that, but I'm just going to hit right post. Okay. Ready to rock with Damo, you reckon? Ready to rock with Damo. I'm just going to do that. Post. Cool. Summer Daily's in the building.
There we go.
Summer.
Well, there's a whole host of different ways in which you can share
it. We're both being distracted by our phone now. I'm going to turn it upside down because I'm no good. I'm no good when the phone's in my face. I'm going to hit record and freak you out by hitting record and starting the episode without your knowledge, and you're just going to have to say hello.
All right. I'm good to go. It's unbelievable. G'day, Summer. Hi, Summer.
Actually, where's my call recorder? Skype's having a meltdown.
Well, I'll be recording, but as we know, that's not the same.
What do you? Oh dear. All right. Are you happy to record? Because mine's just not here.
Yeah, this will be recording. This records.
Right. Yeah. Okay. I'll trust you. All righty. Trust. It's a big deal. Swear to God. Big deal. That's a whole other episode, actually.
A big word.
Okay. Ready to rock in 3, 2, and 1. Hello and welcome to 100 Not Out, a weekly show dedicated to helping you master the art of aging well. Marcus Pearce here with you for episode 413, just a month shy of our 8th birthday. And as always, and really when I say as always, like I'm always digitally here now with Damo. I've only had one in real life time with Damo in the last 50-odd episodes.
More.
The number one wellness expert in this country, bar none, Dr. Damien Christoph. Hello, brother.
Hello, brother. How are you? Nice to see you on the screen again, although it was nice to have you in person.
Oh,
only last week, wasn't it?
If we were more Insta famous, we would have taken so many photos and videos of our time together. But because we're not, we didn't take one photo of our time together. I came home to show my kids what I did.
Yeah.
No photo of your caprese salad, cheese board, just hors d'oeuvre city, the beautiful dinner we had, the incredible wine, the Icarian wine, the rosé, the breakfast we had out together, the bromantic time we had has not been captured, and we have to live with that because the memories are rich and they just get richer with time.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Which I love. Like, I love that. There was a time in my life where everything was Facebooked, everything was Insta, like all that sort of stuff. But I kind of, I don't really do that much these days. And I think that, those people who love us jump online when we're online, and that's kind of nice. But I'm always happy to share. Audio is good for me. I like audio.
Yeah.
Now that I've got no hair, I've got a good head for radio.
Now, you're very humble, and we're not going to talk about all of the wild opportunities you have, but you do have a number of big opportunities on your lap, at your desk at the moment, which you're filtering through. And in amongst that, it got us talking about your just incredible nature as a green thumb, my complete lack of, let's just say, innate, natural, inborn ability to keep food alive or to even grow food from scratch. You're very good at it. Your basil is thriving. You have 3 forms of mint. Your tomatoes are growing. You've just got your balcony is alive.
So true.
Is it flora and fauna? Is it just flora? Anyway, I think it's flora.
Well, we have a cat, so there's some fauna.
Oh, yeah.
And fauna. I found a lizard the other day, so that's fauna.
So you are teeming with fauna, and your flora is thriving.
Yeah.
And it really just got us chatting about homegrown produce. The world is still very, I want to say, organic obsessed, but there is still the default question for a lot of consumers still is it organic? And I think it'd be a great conversation to have. We're in the process of building a home, which means I'm going to have to learn how to grow my incredible edible garden, as you have done. But I do think a lot of our listeners and viewers are going to want to have this conversation of, is homegrown better than certified organic? Is certified organic better than non-organic but local? What if it's a, organic banana from Thailand? Is it better than a, not certified organic banana from
Byron Bay,
North Queensland?
Or Coffs
These are
Harbour.
questions that need answers. And if anyone has the answers, it's you or Coffs Harbour. That's right. So you ready to rock?
Yeah, mate, I can't wait. I'm just saying hi to a few people. Just noticed that Nolan's on. Therese is there. It's great to see. So I'm just saying hi to a few people. But, mate, it's a big deal. I think I'm often asked, and when I was making forage, a lot of people asked me, why don't you make your product organic? And the porridge was organic. Like, it was organic. But the reason why we didn't do organic was because we couldn't why didn't we continue with the certification? Because we did have ACO certification in the early days of the porridge. And yes, there's lots of compliance things, and you've got to make sure that it's in an organic, space, and it's away from all kinds of different chemicals and et cetera, which is fine. That's easy to do. But it was always difficult to ensure that we would always be able to get certified organic produce in order to blend with the porridge. And obviously that makes it much more expensive as well, because you're not growing in massive batches and big loads, and you've got pests that can come in, chew down crops, and you're not using poisons and all that sort of stuff that would stop locust plagues and stuff, so it becomes a bit more expensive. And so people would often ask me, why don't you use organic with the rest of the range? Like, why isn't the rest of it? And again, it all came down basically to supply. Like, once upon a time, everything was kind of organic, but as there's been a greater need for the world to have to use more food, or for the world to consume as much food as what we do, and to get efficiencies and to get the quantity of produce out that kind of almost needs to be out to feed such a massive population in the world. And even then, there's so many millions, billions of people that are starving. To create as much food as what we do, the modern day farming processes don't subscribe to an organic model. And so then I've got to be thinking, like, will we have as many centenarians moving forward as a result of our produce not being organic? And what are the countries around the world where they have lots of centenarians? What are they doing? Are they consuming organic food? Is that, even though we have identified that nutrition's only a fraction of a component to longevity, could it be that it's organic produce and less pesticides has actually assisted them in avoiding cancer and heart disease and diabetes? I mean, the stats off, like the back of your hand. So is it a toxin thing, or is it or is it something else? But I thought that'd be worth, maybe, considering.
This is so good. All right. At the end of this episode, what I want from you, Damo, is what vegetables and fruits, if they're easier, but vegetables are way easier, I reckon. What vegetables can any of us grow in the backyard? You don't have a backyard. You have 2 balconies, and you still grow all of this incredible food. So we're gonna get to that. We are going to have this conversation around food and potential causal links to longevity. Let's do a couple of just random statistic vomits, which I think are valuable.
I love a statistic vomit. Yeah.
Okay. So 33% of cancer is a direct result of obesity. Mm-hmm. And in the words of your good self, 80% of body shape comes from food.
Yes.
You do the links there, it's pretty obvious that food choices are a big chunk of what causes cancer.
Yep.
34% of diabetes, this is World Health Organization stats, directly caused by obesity, and 80% of body shape from food. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that part of it is clear, but I think we would also say that a lot of that food creating that obesity, it's not conventionally farmed apples and conventionally farmed green beans, it's carbicide gone mad. It's just so many toxic carbs, so many toxic fats, and arguably toxic proteins, and then obviously sugars as a carb and the rest. But I don't think it's the vegetables and fruits choices that are at the cause of those levels of obesity. So then, Damo, I want to propose to you that when we go to Ikaria and when we do our research on Sardinia and Okinawa and the rest, those areas don't check labels because they actually don't eat a lot of labels. I always think of Yanni and Joanna. They are self-sufficient off their own land except for coffee and flour.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't think they check the labels on the coffee and the flour to see if it's organic and if it's been sprayed or if there's any mold in the coffee and how they filter it. Because I would say, definitely the way I think anyway, is they are doing so many of the right things that what two of the things are is actually really unimportant.
True. Like I think I kind of lost you a little bit there because Wendy jumped on. But
you got distracted.
Yeah, sorry about that. But where I heard you going, and what I enjoyed you talking about was the fact that Yanni and Joanna aren't looking at labels, and they're not concerned about mold and all that sort of stuff on their coffee, and they're eating everything kind of fresh as it kind of. Well, my picture of that is that they're eating stuff that's fresh and seasonal, so they're not worried about the storage of stuff. And one of the things that we do these days in the Western world or in kind of a modern civilization or in the city, whichever way you want to look at it, is we harvest too much and then try to store it for a long period of time.
Yes.
So for longevity of the produce sake, we're using preserving methods that enable stuff to seem still fresh, if that makes sense. So we might use a spray into the air at a certain temperature to close up the pores of an apple so that the apple stays fresh and not deformed by the time it gets brought out to the supermarket shelf. Regardless of whether it's 12 or 18 months old, it still looks fresh. And it's not until you actually break open the apple or cut open the apple that you realize that it's not too fresh because it goes brown within 5 minutes. So, part of our desire to have access to all of these foods continuously out of season has meant that we've had to, look at storage methods and also preserving methods of food and meat or vegetables, plants and proteins and even fats to some extent that will give it shelf time or shelf life.
So this is the question which I think, or the issue which I think is still overlooked, and that is the food miles conversation, which is just another way of eating local foods. I know when we moved up here, I was like, there's macadamias everywhere and there's macadamia trees everywhere, and I was like, Sebe, we don't need to buy cashews from Ecuador or Pakistan.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just have almonds from Australia and macadamias from our local shire. Why do we need to? And the reason why I feel like many of us have got into these habits of what you've just said about harvesting or buying foods that have been designed to be on a shelf for a long time is I almost feel like it's the recipe epidemic. If we didn't have so many recipes, we wouldn't be shopping for so many single ingredients that we feel like we must get this ingredient to top off that recipe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But in days gone by, your grandmother would only show you how to cook this recipe when the food had actually grown in her garden or her neighbor's garden. She couldn't show you until she actually had it available to show you.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas now you could show anyone anything at any time.
Yeah, well, that's right. And I mean, gone are the days kind of where we would have meat and 3 veg and be okay with that. And if we had cabbage in the garden, we'd cook up the cabbage, even if the kids, kicked up a bit of a stink, So you're right, everything's gone a little bit fancy. And for us to be able to make a butter chicken, we need our cashews. And if we want to have butter chicken when we're not growing cashews, then, we've got to buy cashews from overseas. So we're not necessarily shifting our meal designs, meal types, or our cravings or desires for particular types of foods to a seasonal appropriate time, if that makes sense.
And even I just said to Sarah today, she was like, oh, we're just having so much plain food at the moment. And I was like, oh, we'll probably be doing that till 2030, which is my answer to everything.
Yeah.
But, the kids aren't into elaborate meals, which personally I don't have an issue with, because I actually think it does tempt you to do something outside of living locally and simply. I think again, I know we reference our times in Ikaria a lot, but it is so powerful for reminding us of the simplicity of food, and particularly around this homegrown organic times. Like we laugh about the wine in Ikaria, but they prioritize having their local wine they don't do any chemicals and sulfates and sulfites. And I'll actually ask you about that in a minute.
Yeah.
And then they laugh at, there's always this joke of, the French tourists come to Ikaria and they expect, the Bordeaux wine, and they taste the Ikarian wine and they're like accosted. They are insulted. They are almost ready to leave the whole island because of the wine. But the people are like, well, this is our natural fermented wine.
Yeah.
And this is our local environment. Why do we have to alter our local environment?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, it's funny because the wine that I drank the other night from Ikaria was unbelievable. Like
You said it's the best Ikarian wine you've ever had.
Seriously. And I also said to you that it's a wine that we wouldn't get here in Australia. Like you couldn't get that flavour wine here in Australia, but it was just unbelievable. So, very lucky that we can get access to that. But it's organic, right? So they're not using sulfur dioxide, not adding sulfur dioxide to it, and it's an organic product. And obviously there's a lot of variability with the organic product as well. So you'll get different shapes and sizes, different flavor profiles, different nutrient levels, all that sort of stuff. There's not much that's standardized with an organic product, and which kind of gives it its own uniqueness as well. But obviously that comes with some kind of challenge. Not everyone wants to buy a funny shaped banana or a funny shaped apple or a two-headed carrot, or some people don't want to do that sort of stuff. So we get a lot of food wastage from organic food because it's not standardized, if you know what I mean. So
is that the fault of the supermarket chains that we don't want a two-headed carrot anymore, because we've been raised to see just like beautiful, perfect carrots, and we think that anything different is like there's got to be something wrong with it?
Well, yeah, I think it's part to do with the supermarkets, but I think it's part to do with the consumer. There's an expectation that an apple looks like an apple or a kiwi fruit looks like a kiwi fruit. And so as a result, anything that kind of deviates away from that's inconsistent is seen to be distasteful. And so to get organic produce that's consistent in its shape and consistent in its weight and so on and so forth it's just harder and more expensive. So I actually think that it's probably more the consumer that's actually driven that, and then supermarkets have demanded it, based on consumer sentiment. So I think there's that. So I was thinking about that too, because if you look at potatoes or you look at sweet potatoes, they're all different shapes and sizes, and we're okay with that. But if it comes to broccoli heads, broccoli heads have got to be around about the same size. If you look at spring onions, like a spring onion bunch is going to be relatively consistent and uniform. If you look at blueberries, they're all about the same size. You've either got a little blueberry or a big blueberry, and you pay more for the big ones, And so there's that standardization process that kind of takes place. But if we go back to Ikaria, and I suppose let's consider what the title of this podcast is: Organic Food and Lifestyle: A Centenarian's Approach. Like if we look at that and consider that, and we look at what Yanni and Joanna are doing, or we look at everyone else in Ikaria, what are they actually doing? It's quite easy to observe their organic lifestyle because they haven't brought in all of the other things. And then if you look at Yanni's not Yanni oh my gosh, Ilya's farm. If you look at Ilya's farm, like he's growing strawberries and eggplant and tomatoes and capsicum and all that sort of stuff during the year when he can grow that. And then when the season changes, he's growing a whole lot of other stuff. Hence the reason why when I asked for spanakopita, we couldn't get spanakopita at that time of the year because spinach doesn't grow at that time of the year. So what's interesting about that is that the only the reason why they're so successful at growing seasonal food is because they've worked out what grows with what. And so when I look at Summer's question before, I can't grow anything because I'm in a rental, or I don't want to spend any time on it, or I, hear what you might say and I don't know, I haven't got a green thumb or whatever. We've kind of lost the art to companion plant. And so much of how organic lifestyle from a food or nutrition perspective would work is around companion planting and ensuring that there's plants that are there to distract the bugs or the funguses or whatever it is away from the crop that it is that we're wanting to consume. Or, for example, look at sugarcane. In order for we look at the sugar. There's the cane toad was introduced to keep a pest away from the sugar cane, which has worked obviously. But now the sugar cane toads or the cane toads have gone berserk, and I think there was another animal, maybe it was a snake, that was actually introduced to try and get rid of the cane toads. And so when you try to hack your way into growing something that's not local, there's repercussions for it. You know what I mean? So
that just sounds like a medicine and the side effects. I brought in this, and the side effect of that is that I need to do this, and the side effect of that I need to get in the snake.
Yeah, it's cascades of intervention. So I look at my garden out on the deck to my left-hand side, and I've got limes which I've been harvesting, Piercy. I've been harvesting my limes. Now I've grown that on a deck. I'm on the second story of a apartment building in Melbourne. And I've grown out there thyme and basil and a tomato plant that yields more than 300 tomatoes every time it comes to flower. I've got a frangipani. I've got spinach, rosemary, parsley. Most of that's herbs. So I've got lemons and limes out there. Then I go at that deck to my right, and there's something there that's not as good as what's out there. So I get pests on my plants out that side, and I get aphids on my coriander out that side, and my lemon tree won't fruit. So there's something that happens on this deck compared to that deck. So I really can't work that one out. But sometimes where you're growing your produce, remember the planter box I used to have in Brighton when I lived down the road. I could never grow anything in that thing. Like every time I got a little bite of a tomato, some kind of bush rat would come past and chew it up. Maybe it was just a possum, but something would just, chew it up and eat it. And so there's a lot to do with the positioning of everything and all that sort of stuff. But in Ikaria, they've got that nailed. In Sardinia, they've got that nailed. In Okinawa, they've got that nailed. My suspicion is that there's some wisdom in the organic food and lifestyle of a centenarian that we haven't yet harvested, that we need to bring back to Australia to understand how do they do gardens so that we could also have an organic lifestyle. Does that make sense?
Yeah, we definitely, I'd love to spend more time with Ilya in the garden. Absolutely. All right, 3 quick questions to wrap it up. I'm in the supermarket. Do I get certified organic, non-local, or do I get local, not certified?
Have you ever watched Suits before?
No, you asked me about this. No, haven't.
Okay, so in one of the scenes in Suits, Mike Ross is asked by this girl that he wants to date to play a game. And the game is you're given 2 characters, and you have to decide which character is going to be out for the rest of forever. And so that character never existed in time. And so one of the questions was, out of these 2 characters, which would you choose has to go, and you have to choose one. Is it Han Solo or is it Indiana Jones? Which character goes forever and never makes a movie? You've asked me that question just by asking me, do I buy local and not organic, or organic and not local? And it's really hard to say, because sometimes I would say buy local, but there could be local food that's really rich in pesticides and herbicides and all that sort of stuff, which may not be as good for you. But we could have organic produce, which is really good for you, but it's traveled miles. So I kind of go...
It depends.
They're hard. Yeah. That's a really hard question to answer. Yep. So I love the question, but it's hard to answer.
Yeah, I agree. Actually, it's horses for courses. Okay, so this might be exactly the same. Homegrown and sprayed
Yes.
versus organic international. It's pretty much the same thing.
Same thing. Same thing.
Yep.
I think some of these things just can't be mutually exclusive. And
Yes.
so I think your gold standard will be local organic. Like that's your gold standard. In fact, it'll be organic and homegrown, and then organic and local. And obviously, all of my garden's organic, right? 100% organic. No, nothing bad used in it. I turn in there some fertilizer, which is just poo, and so that just goes into there. And so it's great. But so I'm using organic stuff. But that's not going to be the case for everybody. Not everyone's going to be able to do that. So,
all right, last question for this episode. People that want to start their own veggie patch, something at home. The 3 or 4 easiest vegetables that pretty much anyone could grow, and they're not going to have to worry too much.
So veggies, tomatoes, everyone can grow. Potatoes, everyone can grow.
Really? Potatoes?
Yeah. Tomatoes?
Potatoes,
yeah. Everyone can grow potatoes.
Oh, cool, okay.
So easy. And then you just let your potatoes go a little bit further and then replant them, so that's easy. Zucchinis, someone has just written, Tammy's just written zucchini. Zucchinis, yes. Pumpkins, yes. Carrots, yes. Like all of these are all easy things to grow.
Tammy lives on a farm. She's a farmer.
Does she? Oh, there you go. Tammy's cheating. Maybe she's got a zucchini farm. Most things are actually really easy to grow, provided you give it the right environment. The right amount of water is really important. The right amount of sunlight is really important. And plant them near each other. There's a great little book that I was given, which is it was all about companion planting. I got that a few years ago. Really, really good book that just helps you know what to plant near what else. That's a good thing. Yep. Citrus, you can't go wrong with citrus. That just needs a wee from time to time. I think there's plenty of great foods that you can be growing in your backyard. And I think the only thing is how much of your backyard are you willing to give to your garden?
Well, in Ikaria, it's a lot.
It's the whole of your backyard. It's your front yard, backyard.
Lots of land, because that's going to feed you and keep you safe for many years to come.
Yeah.
Great episode, great chat. Thanks for your wisdom. I think we've defined that you can't be so hell-bent on one way or another. There is a large element of grey, like there is with many things, but particularly around longevity. It's not as black and white when it comes to food. So thanks for your wisdom as always, Damo, on this episode of 100 Not Out.
Thanks, PC. Thanks for the questions too. Challenging questions. I think it's good for people to see that you just can't have it all your own way. Like, no. If you want to have a bit of flexibility, you've got to be a little bit flexible yourself.
For all of Damo's wisdom, head on over to DamienChristoff.com. Myself, head on over to MarcusPearce.com.au. We are approaching the 8-year birthday of 100 Not Out, and our Byron Bay Longevity Experience announcement is coming up. All we say now is keep May 16 to 22 in your calendar. Keep it free, and we'll have all the details as soon as we can. Thank you for your support of this podcast. And until next week, continue to make the rest of your life the best of your life.
Bye for now. I think that's so cheesy.
So cheesy. That's why it's good. All right, we're going to stay on Facebook and do. Have you got time for one more?
Yep.
All right. Great. Great chat, gents. Good on you, Wendy. See, I didn't look at my phone that whole time. I was very present during that episode. You, Damo, you lost it a couple of times throughout that episode.
Oh, I think I thought I only lost it once. Did I lose it more than once? Did I? I thought I lost it once. Fair call. Only once. Yeah.
We'll give you that grace.
Thanks, mate.
We'll give you that grace.
What am I going to title this one?
Oh, the one coming up?
Yeah.
No idea. Just number 2 for now. I don't know. We're going to see where this one goes.
Okay.
We're just going to go for it. Sometimes, folks, for those on Facebook, these are the best episodes. And now that I've said that, this could be the worst one ever because you put the moz on yourself. But sometimes when you just go in for a chat, it can be one of the better ones.
It's true.
All right. Ready to rock?
Yeah.
Okay.
I am.
All right. In 3, 2, and 1. Hello and welcome to 100 Not Out, a weekly show dedicated to helping you master the art of aging well. Marcus Pearce here with you, episode 414, 414. Holy moly. Couldn't have done it without my brother from another mother. We are shooting on down to Melbourne the day before, as we record this, the day before Melbourne are set free and go back to some sort of normality. Dr. Damien Christoph, how are you, brother?
I'm feeling relieved, to be honest with you, PC. There was a fair bit of chat. There was bets at Sportsbet as to whether or not Victoria would come out of lockdown. It had become a bit of a joke. I think Victoria's become a bit of a joke for the way in which we've handled this situation. Some people would call it a pandemic, but it's an interesting time. But I am actually feeling much more relieved that we're actually getting back to normal, which is great, mate. So thank you. Thank you.
I think more than anything, and this is where just inspired hobbies are really important in life. I reckon that outside of your work commitments at Vita, where you run a world-class organisation and practice,
thank you,
you'd just be going, I just want to go and play golf, please. Is that the second most biggest relief? Maybe it is the single most biggest relief, but I didn't want to say that for you. You must be very relieved that you can go out and live your inspired hobby, which is golf, once more.
Yeah, it's a funny thing, because, had you asked me 6 years ago, what would I miss most if we went into lockdown? Number one, I probably couldn't have conceived that we'd ever go into lockdown and that anything would ever be taken away from me, But to have your freedoms and liberties taken away so that we can manage, this situation, it's a confronting thing. So for me to not be able to go into work, which I don't see as a job, I see it as something I love to do. It's a vocation. Like, I just love it, going to work. And you're right. I think I do have a world-class facility, and it's great, and I work hard to keep it that way. I'm relieved to be able to go back to work tomorrow, to be honest with you. Like, that was hard. It's hard to not do what you love when you know that you're helping so many people. And then from the perspective of playing golf, yes, I feel relieved I get a chance to go back and do that. You're right, that is my inspired hobby. It's becoming a bit of a passion, a bit of an addiction. There's no doubt about that. I'm not sure if it's becoming or if it already is, but I'm kind of there. But then there's the flip side of it, now that we get to go out of lockdown and get back to life, Jackson gets to move back to college. So he's now moving out of home. So he was supposed to move out of home last week. We got to have him for an extra week because of the extra lockdown. So there's the ebbs and the flows, the push and the shove, the good and the bad, the black and the white. It's all kind of there, with any kind of challenge or any kind of shift and change. Obviously, you're presented with a different set of events. And so it's how do you digest that? And obviously that then helps you define what's important.
That's interesting, actually. As you talk, I think of even just like a snap 5-day lockdown makes you wonder what you really do miss. And it may not be what it was when you had no conception of what a lockdown would look like and what you couldn't do and the feeling and all the rest of it. People would give the obvious answers, but it's now really clear. The things that people miss are just, it really does count to like that flexibility or that freedom to go and play golf. But like you said, when you love your work and it's not the type of work that you can do from home, just that feeling of value to society, to community. I know, because again, I've lived a very different last 12 months to you, but I remember one of the most recurring thoughts over our time when the whole country was locked down was, thank God I love where I live. Yes. Imagine those poor people that were almost like, days or weeks away from moving out of a place they really didn't like into a place they really did like, and they were really excited to, and they couldn't. I know people that were going to move from like South America to Australia and are still in South America. Wow. And they were so excited to relocate and all of those things. And I know there are like hundreds of millions of those stories of people that were going to get married and all the rest of it. I know something I want to tell you, because my mum, just as we say this, my mum was banging on. My mum's in Mornington. She was banging on about, the millions of dollars in food that was being thrown out during the 5-day lockdown and all the business and and in the words of my mum, Dan Andrews has never owned a business in his whole life. He wouldn't know a thing about business. And, she got a point. But she got talking about just, the media side of things. And I was like, if I was in media land still, I know exactly what I'd be wanting. I'd be wanting to find the people that had to cancel their wedding twice. Once during the first lockdown in Melbourne, and they'd rescheduled it, and then there was a snap lockdown and they've had to cancel the second one. Then, and then as the vaccine rolls out, you're going to want to find people, if you're in media land, you're going to want to find people that have had COVID, get the vaccine and end up having COVID again, or that get the vaccine and get COVID, and all of these different things. And we got talking about, what's the media's role in terms of their innate natural behavior, because they are just another subset of human beings. In how to report
different type of human being, definitely.
How to report a story that just continues to develop in ways that are, for want of a better term, people aren't used to.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting, don't you think, that given the events that you've just had in the last 5 days, there is still so many ways to skin a cat of human experience.
There are. Peter Lennon's just said we can start now. Thanks, Pete. Yeah, that's great. Can you ask that question again? Sorry, mate.
Oh, I think I went on for about 4 minutes.
No, given just the last bit
that you've had, and I think the experiences that a lot of us have had.
Yes.
My inner hope is that people are beginning to understand.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people blame the media, but I think many people forget how human beings are wired to behave. And I find it really interesting that people don't take a moment to consider that the media is doing what human beings do every day. And
but on steroids. They're doing it on they're doing it on steroids. And so that you're so bombarded with a message that you have to believe it. Like most people will end up believing exactly what the message is, and it's a rhetoric. Like, it continues to be the same story over and over and over again, the same sentences, the same phrases, the same
it's rote learning. It's rote learning 101. It's exactly the way people have been educated for years. So this is where you and I might get into a disagreement here. My view is,
what we're seeing is a repeated message that if you continue to watch it, you will fall into line with it. And in Australia with our media, it's very one-dimensional. Like, it's not, we don't have, and in fact, any other view apart from the media's view is a conspiracy theory. So, and now people are calling for the major media channels, whether it be Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or whatever, they're calling for those mediums or media outlets to monitor what actually gets posted up, so that only one line of conversation gets broadcast. That to me is really scary, and we see that now at the moment.
So I would agree 100%. Anyone that thinks there's independent media is kidding themselves. There's no such thing, and I would also go as far to say that there never has been such a thing as independent media, because any medium that has an editor, and someone that makes the decisions, just by the very virtue of them being a human being, means that they have a bias, and they have to say yes and no to certain things. And that's been the case forever. My proposition, which again you and I might disagree with, is that it is the responsibility of us as an individual to decide when to turn on and turn off, to decide when to be informed and uninformed, to decide when to allow ourselves to consume at the risk of, and it's a very genuine, serious risk, at the risk that by perpetually being exposed to the same message over and over and over again, we can begin to hold beliefs which we actually don't think that we would ever hold, which is the whole conversation of don't blame the Germans because they were indoctrinated into a way of believing, and that's why what happened. Yeah. There'd be many people that would have done exactly the same thing. So, and again, I wonder whether you and I disagree on that. I'm curious as to know your view. Is you on the view that we're all independent, we make our own moves, we decide what we consume and not? Some do it more consciously than others, but it's all up to us. Or you were more on the side of, no, we're victims of an over aggressive media that is bombarding us with a message, and it's unfair, and it shouldn't be that way. Or maybe there's another way altogether.
Well, I don't think those two options go in the same camp. Much the same as what we spoke about earlier on about whether or not you can, buy local and organic, or whatever it is.
Yeah, there's a few other shades in this.
Yeah, so those I don't think are in the same spectrum. So your first point is about diplomacy. Like, your first point is about being diplomatic. It's up to us to choose when we turn on or turn off, right? And that is a higher executive function of the human being, to be able to turn on and turn off. Like, it's something that we have evolved to be able to do, and we have a choice to be able to do that. We could switch the channels, we could turn it off, we could do something different, etc., etc. And I agree with you. Like, it is our it's up to us to do that 100%. When the only information that comes through is of a particular flavor, that can create addiction. And the way in which the information is being presented at the moment is in little pieces, so that you have to tune in every single day to get the next piece of the puzzle in order to understand the next set of rules, or to understand what the next level of lockdown is going to be, or to understand whether or not we can take our masks off. And so you have to continue to go back in order to be compliant within the parameters of our state at the moment. So you're forced to have to watch or consume the information. That's not diplomatic. Like, diplomacy would enable us to be communicated with and to in a way that would engender us to make decisions that would empower us to be well, stay well, protect ourselves, wear masks, get vaccinated, whatever it is that we choose to do. That would be diplomacy. But that's not what's happening at the moment. And so when you go and you pose the second question to me, or the second statement, which is we're all victims. Well, we are all victims at the moment. And yes, we could choose to, disengage from the media, but then we wouldn't know what we're supposed to know, if that makes sense.
So that's where I disagree.
Okay.
Because I feel like as soon as you walk out the room, your community is your unofficial media. That's where I feel like pre-mass media, our community was our medium. They were the gossip. That's where the gossip was. That's where the local news was. That's where you found out.
Yep.
I think these days we feel like, whenever I'm talking to a company, or they go, well, I need to be informed. I was like, well, yes, you do need to be informed, but who has to do the informing?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like we've been indoctrinated that the traditional media has to do the informing, and we feel somewhat, I'm not sure what the word is, we feel like it's not right, or it's risky if Betty, our next door neighbor, or if Boris, our next door neighbor, is the one saying, oh, did you hear on the news that, we've got to wear a mask and we can't go more than 5 k's from here? Like, you're much closer to the coalface to me on this. So this is like when I was in Melbourne with you, I was checking each day. Well, for the first 2 days, I was checking each day because Brett couldn't come to Melbourne to do the wellness breakthrough and
Yeah.
But this is what I say, like 100% agree with you. It's not as simple as this way or that way.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd love to know your views on, you live in a community, you're a very social person. What say you of the view that the media doesn't have to be the first deliverer of information, and we could rely more on each other to share information?
Well, I love the idea of that. Like, I love the idea that we could disseminate information, whether you call it Chinese whispers or whether you call it community communication or whatever it is. Like, I think that is a really nice way to live. And obviously in the countries that we explore and we look at and we live and, long to live in, those places do that. That's how they communicate the news. That's how they communicate, what's happening is through the community. Through conversation, through engagement. Like, that's the stuff that I think you're angling towards. In the current climate, I think that that's a little bit risky, and I'll use a scenario, whereby I'm on the board of the Australian Chiropractors Association, and we get the word directly from the horse's mouth from the Department of Health and Human Services as to what we're allowed to do. Now, there's some people that aren't members of the Australian Chiropractors Association. As a result, they don't get notified exactly what we get notified. They might hear it through the news a day later. So some chiropractors didn't know that they weren't allowed to practice because they weren't totally clear on the messaging. And so they relied on a medium without having the conversation because they were looking for a different level of accuracy or whatever it is. Do you know what I mean? So accuracy,
totally. Great point.
Accuracy is the cost of the conversation, but the conversation is probably a more beautiful way to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think it's important to recognize that in the times that we're in at the moment, it's not as easy to have a role of the media conversation because everyone's going to have and so they should, everyone's going to have a different view in terms of the urgency and the necessity of information at certain times. And you've made the point beautifully clear right there. There are certain times, if you're a health professional and there's a lockdown, you don't want to be relying on your next door neighbour to find out,
exactly.
What it all means for you.
Yeah.
I think I'm probably, and again, I'm very idealistic on this. I have no qualms in acknowledging and admitting that. I suppose I feel that as long as we're dependent on the media for our information, nothing's going to change, and it's not going to change. I don't harbor any views that the way that we consume information will change in a drawback or a slowdown. It's still going to be the way it is. I think it's always going to be people like you and I that go to little places like Ikaria or even local communities, country towns, where there's just more chitter and chatter amongst local neighbours and the rest. I think what you're saying is spot on. It's gone are the days where your local town rallies together and holds a community meeting and talks about what they're going to do about X issue.
We're all meeting at the town hall.
Yeah. Those days are gone. I suppose I just scratch my head when people whinge and moan about the media, where the media it's a bit like capitalism. It can never be anything else than what it is. The role of capitalism is to grow and develop. It's never, ever, ever going to attempt to get smaller because it's just not how it works. It's like saying a human being gets younger. It's just not how a human being operates. Yeah. So I find it interesting, and I suppose my position on it is, if you don't like it, turn it off. Like don't expect the media to change.
Yeah.
Because as I said to Mum, if I was head of a newsroom, I'm looking for the person that's had the vaccine that's now got COVID. Yeah. Or I'm looking for the person that was about to get married and they've had to cancel their wedding for the second time.
Yeah.
And at the very end of the news, I'm looking for the cat stuck up a tree just to put a smile on someone's face.
And to have Peter have a little bit of a chuckle, little Pete.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
I understand. Yeah. No, absolutely fair point. It's maybe then setting your expectations appropriately for everything. Don't expect people to change.
Someone said,
Don't
expect people to change.
Yeah. Don't expect people to change. Don't expect the media to change. Don't expect, if probably it possibly comes back to the greatest predictor of, future performance is past behavior. Like that, I don't necessarily subscribe to that. I think people can change, but don't expect it, I suppose. Have a more measured or metered expectation.
There was an interview I was involved with the other day where the guest, who is a psychologist for memory, was saying that, she was talking about children being exposed to media that their parents are listening to and parents not having the awareness, or parents thinking that it's just okay and they won't take it in.
Yeah.
And the parent was flabbergasted because the child came up to the parent and said, "Daddy, am I going to die from COVID? And are you going to die from COVID?" And the parent was flabbergasted because the parent said, "I was shocked because," and I quote unquote, I'm doing my little quote marks here, "I was only listening to the ABC." And I thought that was really interesting because the parent had the view that if they were listening to the ABC, that it was a better, more measured form of media than, say, I don't know, Channel 9, Channel 7, Sky News, Channel 10. I want people to really understand that the people at the ABC aren't going, what's the most measured and calm and unnewsworthy way we can share this?
Yeah.
It's just not how a newsroom operates. And
Yes.
for people to think that they can trust that media organization more because it's, I don't know, government funded, taxpayer funded, independent. It's not independent and it's not any less dramatic, particularly for young ears. And we've got to lose this, or we don't have to, but I highly suggest we lose this belief that the media is not sensationalist. It's just the way it is. It's a filtration mechanism to present to you the news. If they're not sensationalist, they're telling you about the stand-up desk they bought this day and the kids they dropped off at school and the 4 million Victorians that got to work on time. If you don't want them to be sensationalist, that's what they'll tell you. But
They'll be doing
only
podcasts.
a filtration mechanism.
Yeah, they'll be doing podcasts.
Talking about the weather.
Yeah.
Well, that's what they do for a couple of minutes anyway. But
Yeah, that's
they'll be
right.
talking about inane stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if
Yeah.
you're anything like me, I don't want to talk about the weather. I want something sensational. Give me drama.
Yes, you do. You angle the drama, which we love.
Any movie starts at the highest point of drama or any good story. Don't
Yes.
expect the news to be any different.
Well, not necessarily the highest point of drama, especially when you look at, Superman or anyone with the hero's journey. Like,
No, that's right. But an interesting
drama.
point of drama, let's say.
yes, an interesting point of drama. That's so true. That is so true.
So
Good
yeah.
chat, PC.
Good chat. Thanks for the chat. I love those chats that just bobble up.
Good chat. Good chat. I think Pete liked it too. He was very engaged today. Wendy, she was
Good.
engaged. Very engaged. I love that.
Well done.
Yes,
well done.
thanks.
I'm not getting any comments, but I'm going to believe
Thanks
you.
for sharing. They're all there. All the comments are there. Absolutely.
Oh, well done. Well done. Well, we're inching. We are getting closer
Yes.
to 8 years, episode 416. It's coming up. It's going to be a belter. Again, our Byron Bay 100 Not Out longevity experience. All details coming shortly. Keep the dates May 16 to 22 in the calendar, and all will be revealed as soon as possible. Damo, thank you as always for your wisdom and your heart-to-heart conversation. I love you with all my heart, brother.
Thank you, PC. I love you too, mate. And I'm rapt that we can have these conversations. And, what's interesting about you and I, and a lot of other people can't do this, but I would implore other people to consider that maybe you could do more of this. Some people say don't talk about religion, politics, what else?
Sex.
Money, sex, and money.
Sex.
Yeah.
Did
They're
we
the four
mention
things.
sex?
Yeah, sex. People say don't talk about these things, but I feel like we can. And I love that about our relationship. So bring it on.
I love this. Let's have a conversation every 2 or 3 weeks on a taboo topic.
Okay.
We have to do it.
As long as it's not to do with vaccinations.
No,
Yes.
no.
Not talk about anything to do with that.
But my favorite thing, because I'm going to say this,
Yes.
this doesn't involve you. It's just an observation from society.
Yes.
My favorite observation of society at the moment is I can't wait to have the vaccine as long as I'm not first.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that interesting? I'm going to wait.
I love it.
I'm going to wait a little bit just to see what happens, side effects, and whether or not people get
I love
it.
I love it. It's like
Yeah.
I'm pumped to jump off the cliff
Yeah.
as long as
After
I'm not
everyone
first
else.
and after everyone else.
Yes. I'll go last.
And I'm not saying that as judgment in any way. I think it's an incredibly interesting conversation
Yeah.
about human behavior and our traits as human beings. That's all it
Yes.
is.
Yes.
All right. For more on Damo, head on over to DamienChristoff.com, myself, MarcusPearce.com.au. And until next time, as always, continue to make the rest of your life the best of your life.
Bye for now. I love it. I love it. That's so funny. Pete's going to be in the first wave. He's going to catch the surf. But that was great. Great. Thanks for the chat, everybody, and thanks for joining in. Louisa O'Neill just dropped in there towards the end. Donna Beard was watching for a little bit too, which was really great. So thanks, everybody, for joining.
Sorry to interrupt. Sorry, go on.
That's all right. It's not like I'm not used to it.
Well, the poor people that I'm friends with, they just get bombarded with a regular introduction.
Yeah, Therese Blay stuck around for the whole time. Thanks, Therese.
Oh, Therese. She was at the Wellness Breakthrough last week. Hey, Pete raises a good point. There's a lot more breadth in programs on ABC. And Pete, let's just be really clear as to how and why they can do that. Yes. Damo, can you answer the question? I'm happy to answer it. But
no, you answer it.
There are no ads. So for every 30 minutes, you've normally got 7 minutes plus of ads. Now, the ABC doesn't have that, which makes it so much easier to have an uninterrupted conversation.
Yeah.
Any interview series on commercial TV that has ads, it's so much harder to pick up flow. And if it is, it's not bad. If it's pre-recorded, if it's Parkinson or Denton or whoever it is doing an interview, it's so much easier to chop that up and put ads in between. But for many shows, ads just make it really hard to resume where you left off. Imagine if us, Damo, we had to pause every 5 to 7 minutes, which is the reality of live radio and much TV. But I'm so grateful that the ABC doesn't have ads, because it does allow for those conversations to be more in depth, which is a good point, Pete. Good one.
Yes. He agrees too. He says, "Yeah, right."
You're right.
Yeah, right,
Pete.
You're right.
Pete, I'm seeing Anna Rubenstein tomorrow in the flesh. Damo.
Say hi to Anna. Say hi to
Anna. Some work with Anna.
Yeah.
Pete, I'll send Anna your best. There we go. That's a random. All right.
Love it. All right.
Carry
See
on.
you later, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to end the broadcast, and we'll see you.
Love you guys.
Maybe not next week. I need to talk to you about that, Pissy. Anyway, see you guys.
How lucky we did too then.